Now, Rock Talk with Mitch Lafon.
Mitch and Alan.
Yeah, Alan Niven from Guns N' Roses. He used to manage Guns N' Roses. He co-hosts with me. Alan, say bonjour to George.
You know, me and Slash are just like that, you know.
Mm-hmm.
I'm delighted to hear it. How are you today, George?
I'm good. I got a great Slash story for you. I came back from Europe and I was doing some shows with Hot Tuna, and I ran into Jack Cassidy and Jorma from Jefferson Airplane, you know, and I just walked up to them and I said, "Hey, fellas, will you sign my guitar?" And they said, "Sure." And I said, I didn't even mention any names. They said, "Well, where you been, George?" And I said, "Oh, I was out there doing some festivals in Europe." And both of them said, "Did you see Slash?" I said, "Yeah, I saw Slash." And they said, "Slash is cool, isn't he?" I said, "Yes, as a matter of fact, he is cool." We didn't even bring his name up. They just assumed if you're touring in Europe, you're playing with Slash. So there you have it.
There you have it. So we'll just remind the folks that George is here to talk about, of course, Live in Boston, the complete concert from 1982. Just a phenomenal package, by the way. I mean, what is it here? I'm just looking down. 27 songs. George, talk to me just quickly about the package and that tour in terms of, because that's where sort of the career got set up for me. You know, that's when we went from being George in the clubs to the MTV to the next level to opening for the Stones. Actually, you opened for the Stones before that, I guess. But talk to me about that package and that tour and that show.
Well, I can't really individualize that one show, fellas, because we played at the Bradford Hotel several times. We played there in 81, 82. So it's kind of hard to, it's kind of foggy. It was a long time ago. To isolate one show from the other. But I will tell you this, that particular location of Bradford Hotel at that time was a pretty rough area in Boston. It was known as the Combat Zone. And it was not exactly the ideal place to be. I mean, if you went down there and you got into trouble and you went to the police and they said, "Well, you deserve it. You went to the Combat Zone. You shouldn't have been there." But our fans came and packed the place out. So I was really impressed by that the first time. But I said, after a while, I said, I like the Bradford. Can we play someplace else but the Combat Zone? Because these people are risking a lot coming down here. But the Combat Zone doesn't exist anymore. They turned it into the Boston Commons. They got a real nice Four Seasons over there. So that I remember. But, in those days, fellas, you couldn't really pick and choose your venues. You had to kind of take what you got.
Yeah. Alan, I'll defer to you because I've had a chance to interview George a bunch of times. I'll let you ask a couple on this one.
Well, that brings back I was going to say, George, that brings back a memory or two for me because when I first came to America in 77 and first visited Boston in that year, I remember being warned very carefully to stay away from the Combat Zone, which got my interest up. And didn't go there. But let's talk about that gig. Tell me, I don't have the track list in front of me, but I mean, for example, have you got Highway 49 on there?
No, we didn't cut that until we did an album called Born to Be Bad, which came out in 88.
Right.
That was strictly a studio thing we threw together because we didn't have enough material. As usual, after the first two albums we did, we were always scrapped for one or two more songs. So naturally, some unknown Chuck Berry song would show up or another Howling Wolf or Elmore James thing. We generally went in the studio and what's that?
I got to ask, did you ever did you ever take yourself down Highway 49 to Route 61 and have a conversation with somebody there?
No, I never did that. I've been in that area a lot. I may have done it and not even known it. I do know that we were with Eddie Shaw, a saxophone player with Howling Wolf, and we were in Mississippi, and we were in that area, and we really went right. This really happened to us. And they have a club down there. I think it's called Ground Zero or something like that, and it's run by Morgan Freeman, the Academy Award-winning actor. And he had a place down there, and we were going to go in there and shoot some video. And as we were going there, we were in two cars, and we went right through that area. It's supposed to be the crossroads and all that. And
Right.
we were. If you ever drive through Mississippi at nighttime, man, it's really dark there. One of the darkest places I've ever seen. Anyway, we're driving through, and there's two cars, and something comes skittering across the road maybe only about 4 or 5 inches off the ground, but about 5 or 6 feet long and moving real fast and looked real strange. And nobody said anything about it. It just went flying past us. And it spooked us so much that we didn't even talk about it till the next day. And finally, somebody got the nerve to say, "Hey, did you guys see something last night?" And we all went, including Eddie Shaw, went, "Yeah, we did. We saw something. Did you see that too?" And we were going, "Yeah, we saw that thing scoot across the road." I said, "What was it?" And one said, "Was it a dog?" And I said, "Oh." And I said, "Was it a wolf?" And I said, "I don't know. We couldn't figure it out." And Jeff Simon, our drummer, goes, "It was a hellhound."
You know
so
what?
we left it at that.
Yeah. You know what? It just might have been. You never know. But, again, I'm sure you've been asked these questions a million times. So forgive me for being indulgent in asking for my own curiosity. But I remember when your first record came out. I remember when your first couple of records came out. And there was something about the release that was incredibly unusual, even to me as a little old teabag from London. And I was fascinated by the fact that you were on a label called Rounder. And I may be wrong, but my recollection of Rounder back in the day was that it was a folk label. And here was this blistering guitar and this great feeling rock and roll suddenly on Rounder Records. And of course, the questions in my mind was, did all the labels, and I love hearing the stories about how stupid labels are, did they all pass on you? How did you end up on a folk label?
Rounder Records was the only label who said maybe.
Maybe. Wow.
Maybe.
And here's the other
thing. We
thing.
understand something. Well, let's give credit where credit is due here, fellas. The fact was, it was a man who saw us play and was connected to Rounder Records. He bought a lot of records from there, and he felt we had a pretty good live act, and he asked if we were on a label. And I said no, and he said, "But I know a label called Rounder Records, which I'd never heard of." And he said, "They might be interested in you." And so I got involved with them. What I didn't know was I thought all record labels were the same. They're not. Rounder Records is a company that they'd be, if they were a film company, they would be shooting documentaries. That's what they did. They found, unusual talent, mostly old-timey music, fiddle music, country, not commercial stuff. And they recorded it. And usually it was a one-shot deal. Like they recorded a woman who was a street musician, and all she played was a tambourine and sang off the streets of Atlanta. So that's what they did. But this I did not know. So no one even informed me. Not even Rounder. They were trying to say, "Hey, look, man, we don't do what you do." And I was like, my plan was to get with Capricorn. That was my plan. We did some shows with John Hammond. I looked at Capricorn. They had the Allman Brothers. They had Ellen Bishop. They had John Hammond. I thought that was a perfect fit for us. So I got the tape ready. We had done some demos. I got a resume of who we worked with, Muddy Waters, Howling Wolf, people like that. And I was all ready to send it to and go to the South and present myself. But then the company folded. In like the spring of '75, I was ready to make my move. And I said, well, now what am I going to do? There's no other label for me to go to. That would have been the perfect one. So then the Rounder thing came up, and, I didn't know any different. I said, well, they're saying maybe. And we sent tapes out to other record labels, Our Holy and people like that, and they turned us down, of course. And Rounder just took pity on us. Finally, I said, "You got to take pity on this guy. This guy lives in a delusional world, and he keeps going on about how great he is, how great the band is." Well, we had a big following in Philadelphia, in the Philadelphia area. We packed in the clubs down there, and people were just crazy over Madison blues and bourbon, scotch, and beer, which Rounder didn't know about. So when they finally got out to see us play live and saw what we did then they got interested and said, okay, let's do a record.
Yeah, and of course, your last record, Party of One, from 2017, was on Rounder, so they revived the label, I guess.
No, they've been going strong ever since. They didn't really revive the label. No, they've been, well, I mean, maybe that's your opinion of it, but they've been doing business, great business with, you know, Alison Krauss and Robert Plant and, you know, a couple albums by those people. So they've been going strong and getting stronger every decade since like 1970. And I kept in touch with them over the years. And in the early days when we were with them, the president of the company, Marion Layton at the time, was always interested in saying, when are you going to do an acoustic album? When are you going to do that? And we just never quite got around to it. So as years went on, I said, well, I guess now's the time to do it. And we had, you know, people interested in that, fans. And people would say, hey, I heard a couple acoustic things on your record. Why don't you do a whole record of that? So time went by when we got together and said, well, it's time now. That's one thing I haven't done yet. So, boy, I'll tell you, that was hard work, too. Whatever they're paying John Hammond and Taj Mahal is not enough.
I had a follow-up on that initial Rounder release, because obviously the other thing that crossed my mind, I was working for a British record company at the time, was I didn't suppose that Rounder had the kind of infrastructure that, say, a Capitol or a Warner's or the CBS had, and wouldn't have had all the regional promotional radio guys. And yet suddenly this record of yours on Rounder, to my recollection, took off. Am I right in my recollection? And I mean, that obviously speaks to how good the record was. But how did Rounder get you out there? Did you break out regionally? Was it out of Philadelphia?
No, it wasn't. It was just a word of mouth thing. And Rounder Records was very conservative in their publicity and their promotions. Because, like I said, they were a documentary label, and they would do a documentary thing, and they had a mailing list and all that, and they had their business all straightened out. And along comes our record. Well, we had no push. We had no manager. We had no tour manager. We didn't even have an accountant. You know, we didn't have anything. We had one microphone. You know, we drove ourselves. Well, I had a Princeton amp. You know, and what happened was somebody got a hold of the album at a party in California and put it on, and they kept playing it and playing it and playing it. And somebody from radio, at the FM radio up in, they had a thing called, they had K-Fat and they had K-Met and these labels in Northern California, and they put it on the radio, and it took off that way, and then someone picked it up and put it on AM radio in Denver, which really, it kind of freaked me out. I said, hey, man, we're not supposed to be on the radio, man. This is an insult. We're not supposed to be on the radio. No, Hound Dog Taylor don't go on the radio, baby. That's selling out. That's copping out. So when it got rolling, it really pleased us and Rounder. I said, see, for years I've been reading things in magazines about how great this record is and a promotional for this new band and this new act. So I go listen to it. I said, this record isn't any good. Why are they doing all this promotional push for something that isn't any good? Why don't they do no promotion at all? Just play the record and let the people decide if they like the record or not. And that's what happened with us.
And by the way, Alan, what's important or what's great about this is that Jeff Simon, the drummer, and Billy, and I don't know how to pronounce his name, but Billy Blau, I guess is how you pronounce the bass guitar's name.
It's a British. It's in England. It's Bluff.
Bluff.
In America, it's Blau.
But these guys have been with you since that first record. Talk to me about that, because you know the name on the marquee says George Thorogood. You could easily just every 5 years, you know, like Alice Cooper, get a whole bunch of new guys, but you've stuck with them. Talk to me about that importance of sticking with the guys and having a loyalty, but also having a band that is George Thorogood and not just a guy.
Well, you know, well, let me set you straight, fellas. I mean, after the first album, couple albums, yeah, I did get in touch with Stanley Clarke and Paul McCartney and Charlie Watts and Jeff Beck, but they weren't interested, you know. And they're a little out of my price range, you know. So I said, hey, And another thing about Blau and Jeff and myself, I have a very unorthodox style of playing the guitar. And I play with a lot of people, and there were just certain drummers who couldn't find the groove behind me. John Hammond has an unorthodox style, and when he worked with Charles Otis, it was absolute magic. So I said, but playing with these guys, it's got, we have our own style. We have that. I said, yeah, we can go get these flashy cats and hire them and all that, but it won't be quite the same. It's like when I heard Fogerty's solo record when he did Center Field, everybody in the world said, except for John, said, no, Creedence, that's it. That's the sound. That's the John Fogerty sound. Those are terrific records. And I told somebody once, I said, well, our band we're not the most polished guys. This is the way we play. And someone said, well, that's the charm of it. And I used that as a reference because I listened to that song, Who'll Stop the Rain, and the ending, the drums in the end. I talked to John. I said, how can you be embarrassed by these records that you made with these fellas? I mean, the Beatles came to see you play, brother. Why would you tamper with something that great? So I said, well, and besides, I could afford Billy and Jeff. I couldn't afford to get, I couldn't afford to hire George Benson. So, hey, there you go.
There you go. Hopefully they're not working for minimum wage at this point. Let me quickly talk about the Epiphone White Fang that is your signature guitar. Talk to me about that one and what attracted you to that company, and what is it about your guitar and the sound, and how involved are you in the production of it? Do you just say, here, guys, just throw my name on it and we'll sell a few and off I go? Or do you get in there and say, let me check the specs, let me do this, let me get my guy? Talk to me about the White Fang.
Well, it's not as the whole Distorters organization isn't quite as slap happy as people may think. There is organizations from day one that an awful lot of thought went into our stuff, records, our equipment, all those kind of things. Whereas the people get the misconception, they'll say, "Oh, George and the guys, man, they just get drunk and jam." That's not the truth. If you did that, you're not going to last. We were very meticulous about the instruments we used. I got the 125 because it was inexpensive, and that's the only electric guitar I could afford. And we had a gig coming up, and I had never played electric guitar in a band before. I played acoustic, and the band was a miracle because it just fit my style. It's an arch top. It's set up like an acoustic guitar. I thumb pick, I finger pick. I don't flat pick. And it had a unique sound with the P90s. So I wanted a sound that when people heard it, they'd know it was me, for better or for worse. Like you turn on the radio, you hear Van Morrison's voice, it's him. Yeah, so I wonder who that is. So even if people don't like it, at least they know it's me. So no, that's Thorogood. I don't want to hear that. So I said, well, I wanted a signature sound. But the guitars wore out, fellas. I mean, they stopped making them in 1970, and I wore them out. We spent so much money repairing these guitars. We spent thousands of dollars repairing guitars that were only about $200-300 to begin with. So I said, well, I guess I'll just have to stop playing because I played every guitar I can. I can't play them. I tried Fender Stratocasters. I want to be Jeff Beck, I want to play a Les Paul, like all the cats do, Peter Towns and all that. But I just can't get the hang of it. And this is the only instrument I can play. So Epiphone made a deal and said, we will design a guitar like the 125. And our guitar tech, who's a genius from Oklahoma, he did all the specs on it, him and our sound man, Jeff Pitt.
Yeah, Rev.
And he worked.
Rev Jones.
What's that?
Rev Jones.
Reverend Jones. Yeah.
Who of course, hold on, we got to mention this. He played with Michael Schenker for a few years. So he's not just some schmo off the back of the bus here. He's Rev Jones, who played with Michael Schenker and tours with George. So mad props for him.
Definitely big league.
Yes,
definitely.
100%.
Real sharp. He knows it from A to Z and back again. And they got the guitars and they worked with them. And, and finally, a couple of times they slipped the guitar at me and I did a show in Portland and I came back and I said, I want the other guitars back. I don't know if I can play these guitars. And he said, you already have. You just didn't know it. We gave them to you without you knowing it. So, I defeated my own purpose. So and I noticed it. So I went back to the 125s and the reception from the audience was okay. and then I put the Epiphone back on, and I can't put the thing down. I was laying around last night watching the news and went back in the room, picked up my Epiphone. I can't put the thing down once I start playing it. My hands are killing me. I said, man, this instrument's a dream. So it was, and that was Epiphone's idea to get a signature song and, give me make a signature guitar, White Fang. I'm a big fan of Soupy Sales. He's my favorite comedian, and I one's white and one's black, and the guitar, the black one is Black Tooth, and the white one's White Fang, after the two dogs in Soupy Sales. Have you ever seen Soupy Sales shows? You'll know what I'm talking about.
Of course. And Alan, I'll let you go for it.
I was just going to quickly say that, obviously Epiphone, for those who know their guitars, are probably considered, the cheap end of the Gibson range. I got to tell you, Epiphone are, I think, value for money, one of the best guitars out there. I mean, they do an Ed Cassidy bass that I think is phenomenal. And if you're into playing a 12-bar approach, they have some amazing guitars that I think, for their value, are just superlative. I really do.
Well, when I was, I've always been a Gibson man, and when they insisted, what about the Epiphone? And I picked up the Epiphone, I started fooling around with it. Then I went back and did some research, and I remembered in the back of my mind, I went and looked at some pictures, early pictures of the Beatles, and John Lennon was playing an Epiphone, and some early pictures of the Rolling Stones, and Keith Richards was playing an Epiphone. So I said, okay, sign me up.
Good enough for them. Good enough for them.
Exactly.
Good enough for me.
If it works for them, it works for me. And I know we have to wrap up soon, so I just want to ask you this. The first show that got canceled for COVID was you coming to Montreal last year. For me, my first canceled show of all the ones. And I was like, damn it, why George? But you are coming back in May. The tour does start on May 4th in Grand Prairie, Alberta. How confident are you that these dates are going to happen? And if they do, or if they don't happen, do you push them some more? Or at some point you just say, ugh, and say no mas and figure it out and come back? And how confident are you that you will be touring next year?
Well, actually, we don't. Everything is still on the books, fellas. We were supposed to start this year in Vancouver, and then one by one, tour by tour, got postponed, not canceled, and rescheduled, as we did in Europe and other places. So the next date is supposed to be at the end of April in Vancouver, and as of now, it's still on the table. I am, I'm an optimistic guy, but I'm also a realist. Canada is like our second home there. I mean, they roll out the red carpet there. You say Canada, man, the destroyers light up like a Christmas tree. We've been going there since '78, and it just gets better every time we go.
And one of the first places where you were sold out. You've told me the story about how Montreal clubs had lines around the building when you were nobody, in a sense, right? I mean, we love you.
Well, it was amazing because we did the show. I don't even speak French, let alone French Canadian. I don't, we went up there and we played the first set in the club called the Casino. It was called the Casino, and we played. And we're going to do 2 shows, turn the house, and we did the first show. And there's about half a dozen, 10 people who wouldn't leave the club. And the club owner went down there speaking in French, and started shouting, and he said, well, you have to leave. And they said, the second show was sold out. You can't stay. And they said, no, we're staying, and started throwing money on the table. So finally, the club owner went upstairs and got me and took me downstairs. And I said, are you kidding me? I've been waiting my whole life to be successful in this business. And you want me to go to people and turn them away from our show? No way. No way. We'll find a way to let them stay. They would not leave. So they tucked them in the back by the toilet. And these people, they were going to call the cops on these people. So I said, "Holy smokes, man! We got a home here, I'll tell you." So getting back to that, whether we go or not, it's all up to the pandemic. Of course, that rules. That's number one. Health first, safety first. they're saying that the world's going to open up probably late summer, in the fall next year. I tend to believe the experts. I watch the news and check it out and see what's happening. It would be wonderful if we did go sooner than that. Don't get me wrong. I'm kind of holding my breath, fellas, on that. So,
well, the
I'll
head
tell you
of,
what. How about this?
Yeah.
How's it sound? If they have to cancel the tour and schedule another time, how about if I just go to Canada anyway?
Yeah, just come
Without
over to
the
my
band.
place and you come and do the acoustic set in the backyard. Al,
Yeah. I'll get the test. I'll get the the whole test and the whole thing. Go into quarantine and say, well, can't I just come here anyway? We can't. But if I do that, I know what Billy and Jeff are going to say. Say, well, why can't we come? And I'll say, well, okay. And then before you know it, or sax player and guitar player, we're taking Billy and Jeff. Why can't we come? So we're right back to square one.
You'll get them all,
Well,
and
we got
as
the
long
band, we might as well bring the crew into a show.
and as long as they have the Mets on TV, you're going to be good to go. Alan, I will let you close. Après vous.
Well, I was going to say, Mitch, if George comes up and does you the honor of playing in your backyard, just be prepared that people ain't going to leave and they're going to want him to play an extra set. George, I got to say, it's been a real pleasure talking with you. I'm sure you hear it on a daily basis, but I am one of the millions of people who have thoroughly enjoyed your playing and your energy and your vibe and your frequency for decades. And thank you.
Well, thank you. I met the great character actress, Lanny Kazan, and I told her how much I loved her work and how much she was great in My Favorite Year, and I love your work. And I said, I fell in love with you in that movie. And then I stopped and I said, Lanny Kazan, I hope I'm not boring you. And she said, bore me. You want to talk nice like that to me? I'm all ears, partner.
As always, an absolute pleasure, and I will wish your New York Mets well next year. Let's hope they win a World Series for you, and at least give you that joy. So there you go.
Thank you, and hope to see you across the border.
Absolutely, and Alan's down in Arizona, so if you ever get out to Arizona, you'll have a fan in the stands. And there you go. Always a pleasure. Merci beaucoup.
Well, health and safety first, fellas.
Absolutely. Thank you,
Health
Alan.
and safety first. You're welcome.
Got it. Bye-bye.
But cheers.